beautiful out here. Not a guitar anywhere in sight. And we'll cast our line in, see what we get. Oh, beautiful. Oh, I got something. Whoa. Oh man, it's huge. I like to plug the holes before I do my finishing. That's so when I wet sand, the moisture doesn't get into the hole and soak into the end grain like a straw and create a blemish there. So I seal up my holes and edges that are exposed, especially the end grain areas like here and here and here. This particular instrument is getting a opaque finish. It's going to be an off-white, and also these holes here. By sealing the holes in the end grain of the bare wood, I'm preventing moisture from getting into the hole and expanding the wood underneath the finish when it comes time to wet sand. You can use super glue, you can use lacquer, you can use any kind of sealer, as long as that the end grain is sealed up and doesn't behave like a straw when moisture enters it. I'll be replacing the pickguard with a new one, so plugging the holes is a good idea anyway. I'll be using a 2K clear finish to seal the wood. I'm not going to be too concerned with getting sanding up to a higher grit, more than 400. As long as the wood is smooth, doesn't have any holes, pockets, dips, or any other deformations, the 2K will do a wonderful job of filling in and sealing the grain of the wood to prepare the way for the color finish, which will be an off-white. Okay, I'm going to use a tack cloth to wipe down that body, and I'm going to apply a coat or two or three wet coats of 2K clear as a sealer. Today I'm using a product called U-POL. It's from Europe. 411. The extra one usually refers to thinner, if you want to do that. But this stuff is ready to spray just the 5 parts. The 4 parts of this and 1 part of that. And we are going to use a strainer. Okay. We're going to put one part of the hardener right here. One part. Four parts. Mix well. And before we put it in the gun, we're going to strain it again, because I know that this mixing cup has been used before. Even though I sprayed quite a bit of gun cleaner through this before I used it last, I like to just take a wire brush and check to make sure that we have a clear nozzle there. If I have too many guns, I have several. One I use for nitro, one I use for 2K clear, one I use for metallics, and one I use for colors as well. As well as a few smaller guns I use for doing sunbursts and whatnot. You can never have too many spray guns. I get these at Harbor Freight. They're nothing special, but they do the job. I'm not going to put this whole thing in here quite yet. I'm going to put about half of this. Oh, I see a little thing there. Oh yes. Always strain. Always strain. Put some of that in there. Strain out. Let it drip, 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 drip. If there's any issue with the gun for any reason, it's good not to have a whole full batch of this stuff. Alright, now that our gun can breathe, we're going to fire up the compressor. Be right back. So anyway, this green gun here is from Harbor Freight. The tip opening on it is 1.4 millimeter. It's a good middle of the road gun. Yeah, it's not really good for doing sunbursts or anything. It's a little heavy for that, but for about 80 bucks, it really does do a pretty good job for what I paid for it. You can spend a lot of money on a spray gun, and yeah, you'll probably, you know, it's the difference between driving a Ford or a Maserati, you know, but for what I do day in, day out, this'll get it done and do it fairly well. And the term HVLP refers to high volume, low pressure. So you don't want to run these guns much beyond, well, it recommends 14 to 45 psi. I found about 20 is a good place to start. 14 to 20, yeah, says maximum transfer efficiency from 14 to 29 psi. So 20, 25 psi is good. Always check your gun before you actually spray on your piece. Remember, you've cleaned the gun with thinner before and opened it up wide so that it blows out any contaminants and old finish that was in there previously. If you press the trigger gently, just a little bit, it'll behave like an air gun and blow off any dust or anything that you missed with the tack cloth. I'm going to apply a nice thick coat of 2K clear. It'll seal the wood up nicely. When adjusting the tip on your spray gun, keep in mind that when the tip is in the horizontal position, like this, you will get a vertical pattern. When the tip is in the vertical position, you'll be spraying a horizontal pattern. It's important to know when you're spraying narrow areas such as sides
when you
and
adjust
horns.
this to a pinpoint, the further you back this out, the wider your spray pattern is going to be. This here controls how much fluid you're letting through to the nozzle. This little guy here, not every gun has it, is a fine tune for the amount of pressure coming out of the tip. Okay? All right. Okay, well, most people hang their guitar from a hook and spray it like this, as I'm doing now. But I prefer to use my handy dandy jig that I made out of a speaker stand in speaker stand parts. That one on the bottom of the speaker. And this used to be a camera crane at one point I made. That season came and went. But I've adapted it to the spray booth. So now I can take that post here, insert it in here. I can tighten it down if I want to. Okay, and this will spin all the way around. The guitar will spin all the way around in all different directions. Much better. So let's try it. Okay, so there you are. There's our first coat. That whole batch we mixed up was enough to do the whole thing. Rather a nice, thick, heavy base coat for the next color we're going to put on it. I mean, they make other primer, sealer, base coat products, but this is what I have on hand. It'll work just fine. Just using the top coat as an undercoat. Sure, why not? It'll be compatible and stable, and filling properties are excellent. And we should have no problem with that. I sprayed the end grain particularly heavy because the end grain is very thirsty. It's like straw and it just sucks it up, and you don't want it to be dry in there, especially in there when buffing inside inside these cutaways. You really want to have a little insurance there. So I took note to spray a little extra heavy in there to make sure that it wasn't going to get sucked up into the wood and have a dry spot. Nice and wet, nice and smooth. We'll sand the heck out of that and get it ready for the next coat, which will be an off-white. It's good after sanding to prepare your surface with naphtha or Prep-Sol or alcohol on 2K finishes anyway. Okay, so I mixed an experimental batch. I used one of these. I used 7 of these and one of these, and I got the color that I was looking for. So that's not going to be quite enough, so we're going to add 7 more. Give it a little stir. Add the activator, urethane hardener. I'm going to go up, since I'm sort of guessing all the schmutz on here. That's why you always use a strainer when mixing your paint, because you never know what you might get. Like there's some schmutz on the thing here. Okay, I'm going to fill that up to right about there, and that's 4 parts paint and 1 part hardener. 4 to 1, 5 parts. horizontal direction, vertical. Okay, that's it for the first coat. You want to be sure that you clean your gun. You're using 2K. That means it's activated. That means it'll dry up in your gun and ruin it if you don't clean it right after you finish using it. With nitro, you can get away with leaving it overnight. Not a good tactic, but you can. You get away with it. With this, it's like epoxy. You mix the two parts together, part A, part B, it'll turn into part C, and you can pretty much toss your gun away. So we're going to add a little just regular lacquer thinner and make sure this thing is rinsed out nice. I can swirl it around and all the edges, and it's a good idea to always keep the cap on. I'm surprised it sprayed it as well as it did. I forgot to take my little breather thing off. Probably would have sprayed better if I hadn't. I am dealing with some drips. I went a little heavy in the horns here, so I've been rotating it to try to smooth those out. Seems to be working, but this is just the first coat. When it cures up, yeah, it's pretty nasty. Yeah, I went a little heavy there in the horn, but we'll sand it out and then we'll put the second coat on tomorrow. But right now we need to clean this gun. Okay, well, this is the first coat. I got a little carried away in the horns here. I got some drips. Some bubbles right there. And a drip there. A little saggy. And a drip on the back. And a little rub through there. It's funny, you know, it ran
It was really heavy right here. Rain down here. Then there, not a problem though. This is only the first coat, and we got all those strips out here. Get that one there. A couple of bubbles right there. I'm actually using 220, getting the job done. We're going for another coat. We'll probably use a bit more thinner so it flows out a little better. And you can see it's a little, I don't know if you can catch it. Yeah, a little ripply there, you know, a little bumpy. The finish was really thick. I didn't add any reducer or thinner to it. I will the next time around, however. It'll flow out nicer. It'll still need to be wet sanded, but it'll flow better. Okay, I've mixed up a new batch of paint for the second coat. Beforehand, of course, we sanded it with 220 grit, got out all the runs and all the little lumpy bumpies that are inevitable when you use an unthinned paint. But it was very thick. There were a few spots that that sanded through, to be expected. I anticipated putting 2 coats all along. You can see, you know, a little light spot there, and a big spot here, but no big problem. There's a spot on the horn as well. I don't know if you can see it right here, where I had to sand it pretty heavily. That's where I went kind of nuts with the gun the first time around. We'll be a little bit more careful. But in this batch, I added a little bit more yellow. Here we go. Okay, after about 4.5 hours later of sanding, believe it or not, all the way from 600 grit to 5,000 grit. I went through them all. And let's bring it to the buffer.